Hello, welcome to Microsoft Hates Greg. My name is Greg Deckler, and today we're going to be talking about Microsoft and the Uncanny Valley. So I made a video a few videos ago about the Microsoft Fabric Ghost Town, in which I kind of demonstrated with using data from the community forums that really nobody's using Fabric is what I made the argument because there's just nobody really asking questions in the forums. Basically the same amount of questions that have been asked in the most active forum around Microsoft Fabric gets for the last year and a half. That same amount of questions get asked within the Power BI community forum in like 8 days. So there's just really zero or very little activity going on within the Microsoft Fabric community forums. And then Sam McKay, he's like, yeah, no surprise to me. We've been tracking Microsoft Fabric Google Trends and we see the same thing, right? And but some other people had the comment that, well, it's not surprising. It's only a year and a half in. Come back to us after another year and a half. And this always seems to be the argument, right? Oh, it'll pick up. It'll get exponential growth. The wave is coming and all of that sort of stuff. But I really don't think it is. And I think I have a pretty good explanation as to one of the fundamental problems that Fabric has that is preventing it from actually catching on. But before we get into all of that, just let's look at the trends, the search trends for Microsoft Fabric search term, right? And here, right in there, right when it was announced, right, that was the peak of its popularity. And after that, though, it had a precipitous drop off to about a quarter of that. And then it got up to about a year later, it was up, but February of the next year, it was up to around about half of that. And it's really just kind of stayed there in terms of interest. It's never even come close, as Sam said, to getting back to its initial level of interest. And the funny thing to me is that apparently the most amount of interest comes from actually Microsoft themselves and trying to figure out what the hell Fabric is, I guess. It's all the employees are searching, well, what the hell is this thing? We don't even understand it. Now compare this to like Databricks. And I'm using Databricks instead of Snowflake because Snowflake has a lot of noise because apparently, obviously, Snowflake means other things than the software company. But compare this to Databricks for about the same time range in terms of its when it originally was announced, in that it had a lot of interest, right? Which then dropped off, but then it slowly and steadily gained interest, even reached a peak about a year later, right? And then kept on growing and growing. And you can see the obvious trend, which you just don't see with Microsoft. I mean, you see it trending up to here and then just flattens out and it's not doing anything. So that's a problem. Now, what Microsoft I'm sure would like to see is if let's say we take this off and create our custom time range here, and then let's even do this. We'll say custom, and we'll say that this would be, but we'll just dial it back 10 years instead of 20, so we can see it a little bit better. But you can see, boom, you have this kind of this exponential curve right here where the interest in Databricks is just exploding. And again, Microsoft Fabric is just flatlined, right? That's so you have that problem. And now if we compare Fabric to Databricks, the same time range, you can see that there's not even close, right? Fabric is sitting down here at a tenth of the interest than of Databricks, right? So, and it's not budging. So if that trend continues, I don't see, how Microsoft and Fabric make up any ground, right? In terms of that Fabric is growing, Microsoft or Fabric is staying flatlined, and Databricks is continuing to grow in terms of the interest. I don't see them, how that equation works out well for Microsoft, to be honest. So, but the question becomes is why? Why is this happening, right? And my theory on this is that Microsoft has been able to find itself an uncanny valley where their product just isn't suited for anyone, right? So if you're not familiar with the concept of uncanny valley, it's probably best explained in this graphic right here. So affinity, like our human affinity with the object, right, versus the human likeness of the object. Okay, so an industrial robot, like, yeah, it doesn't look very human, and we have a slight positive affinity for it, right? And as things get closer to looking at human, right, but our affinity for them starts to move up, right? But it reaches a certain point where it looks kind of too human, but not human enough, where it becomes creepy. Okay, is the best way to describe it. So like a corpse or a zombie or a prosthetic hand or something like that, right? And so our affinity for it actually drops off and goes negative, where it's like it's a visceral reaction. It's like, ew, that's creepy, until it starts looking more human, and then right, our affinity for it actually improves. So if you want some examples for this, well, maybe my machine's gonna crash. There's some good examples in this blog article here where the tin toy from Pixar, right? This creepy baby thing, right? In terms of it just looks creepy and it's it's just creepy, right? And Final Fantasy Spirits Within, Christmas Carol kind of caught flack over some of the creepy animation. Tintin, same kind of thing, right? So, and there's lots of theories and interesting. It's a very interesting topic, right? But you're probably saying, Greg, what in the world does humans and robots and that? How does that have anything to do with fabric? And what is this uncanny valley thing? How does it even relate to fabric, Microsoft Fabric? Well, here's my theory on this, and I'll pop this up. And this is no like I'm not going to win any awards for graphics or anything on this, but this is my representation of fabric. So you have like suitability or affinity, right? For business users, and then IT professionals are on this side of the line, the orange line, business users on this side of the orange line, and you have the complexity of the product, right? So you have less complex things like Tableau, Click, and Power BI, and they have good affinity with the business user, right? The business user can understand these things. They're not so complex that the business user, just is immediately turned off by them. But as something gets more complex, the affinity from the business user's perspective drops off, right? But as it gets more complex, it becomes more the IT professional has more of an affinity for the product, right? IT professionals, they look at these things as like Excel and stuff as like toys and access, right? These are toys that the business plays with. We're IT professionals, we deal with SQL Server, analysis services, all of these things, right? So like Snowflakes and Databricks would fall over here, and the IT professional would be, have an affinity towards these products, right? Analysis services, SQL Server, like I said, would fall over here. Excel would be over here. Fabric, in my opinion, has managed to carve out a niche where it falls exactly in between. Like it's not as complex as analysis services and Databricks and Snowflake and that sort of stuff, but it's not as simple as Tableau, Click, and Power BI. I guess Microsoft would probably argue that, hey, we built a product that is that both IT professionals and business people are going to like. And my argument is the reverse. You've created a product that neither one of them like. Okay, it's too complex for the business user, and it's not complex enough for the IT professional in terms of and what I mean by that is business users are like, oh yeah, we want to write our code in notebooks, and they don't even understand the difference between a data warehouse and a data lake house, right? Well, why would I use one versus the other? Well, should I use data flows or should I use Azure Data Factory or this other thing that you have in here or our code or what should I be? There's too many options in Fabric for the business user. Whereas like Power BI is very straightforward, right? Create your data model, create your report, publish it up, done, right? You can use dashboards if you want to consolidate or use apps, whatever it is, but it's very simple and straightforward. With Fabric, there's too much complexity. There's too many things that overlap with one another. They don't know when they should use one versus the other. But for the IT professional, it's too dumbed down. Okay, it's this software as a service, right? With like that Fabric databases. Oh, it's the first software as a service database. Yeah, because it was a stupid idea. That's why nobody did it. The IT professionals, okay, this database that I have that I create over here. Well, the storage behind it's Azure Gen 2 data storage, but is it premium storage or is it standard storage? Because the pricing seems to make seem like it's standard storage, not premium storage. It would be about 10 times as much. But so then what are the IOPS I'm going to get through with that? When I'm putting transactions through that database, what are my IOPS going to be? Right? There's no information behind it. You have to literally like spin up an instance and test it and do performance metrics, right? There's so little options in terms of that you get to choose, right? You don't get to choose if your Fabric data storage is geo-redundant. Globally redundant storage, right? It uses zone redundant storage. You have to dig through the documentation and find out, well, it'll use zone redundant storage if available. Otherwise, it uses locally redundant storage, right? There's not enough buttons to throw and not enough information out there for the IT professional to feel comfortable with Fabric and trusting it with like enterprise workloads, in my opinion. So it's not for them, and it's too complex. It's too dumbed down and simplified for the IT professional, and it's too complex for the business user. So it falls into this uncanny valley between the two audiences. And if you don't target one of the audiences, then you basically target no one. And I think that is one of the major problems with Fabric right now, in that it's business users aren't adopting it, IT professionals aren't adopting it, and so there's no one there to adopt it. So, and I don't see that problem like these people that say that, oh, Fabric, it's coming, just wait, right? Fabric, the wave is coming. If it remains in this uncanny valley between audiences of who it's intended to be used for, then I don't see it changing. I don't see this fundamental problem like going away and being able to be whitewashed, right? If this problem remains, then neither of these two groups will adopt it, and it'll just languish and go nowhere. So that is my theory on one of the major problems of why Fabric just is not catching on and is not doing very well or yeah, at all in the marketplace. So that's all I had for this video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.